Hey guys, I wanted to make a video that's a little out of the norm from what I usually do. This is in relation to the Stoneman Douglas shootings, and first and foremost, I have to say that I'm incredibly proud of the way the kids have been handling themselves, how they've been demonstrating all across the country in the organization of marches and talks with people in political spheres.
Okay, this is what I have a problem with, Markiplier. The thing is, they're not acting well. Did you realize that it's only been 2 weeks since a fucking massacre took place, since a guy walked into a freaking educational establishment and shot up the place? Do you realize that? These kids are fucking traumatized. Why aren't they getting therapy or psychological help or something? I know I would be fucking mentally fucking damaged if I saw my friends get killed. So why are they handling themselves well to you? Oh wait, they're trying to push a political agenda, but it's actually not the kids' fault, and I'll tell you why. Because it's Democrats. Democrats and liberals who are trying to push this gun control agenda, and they need people that are basically poster children. They need people they can point to and go, look at these strong kids going through adversity and coming out. We should ban guns because they're affected by it. Well, guess what? They're kids that have just been affected by a mass shooting, and they should not be out there doing political marches and speeches. You know, it makes no sense. These kids should be in freaking therapy at best, or at least with their parents for at least 2 months or something like that, you know, so these kids can actually get adjusted to what happened. These kids don't really even know about guns, half the kids at the Parkland school. Half the kids are pro-gun people, and I actually like the way they've been handling it, though. Actually advocating and protecting their Second Amendment rights, versus half the others who know little about firearms and guns are out there spewing out of their mouths what the left wants them to talk about. Yeah, they're doing that. Did you realize on CNN they gave, I think it was a kid, a scripted question? Most of them were scripted questions, and one of the heroes that protected the kids said, hey, I'm a student, I support my Second Amendment rights, and I don't appreciate you guys propagandizing everything, and I do not want to be a part of this because you scripted my questions when I had real legit questions to ask about actually putting veterans as guards up there. Yeah, you know, it's like, it's fucked up. The left is totally doing this shit in their, basically brainwashing these kids to go out on marches, do freaking school walkouts, when half these kids know nothing about guns. All they really know about guns is fucking video games. I think Mr. Dapperton went over and said, he's a great ANCAP, by the way, he said that one of the kids was actually saying you could buy an AR-15 for $130. My fucking ass, you could do that. That's like $130 is for a good lower receiver, or at least for most of the parts. Actually, not really most of the parts, but a quarter of the parts. It's probably gonna cost you $600 just to fucking buy an AR-15, or even more than that. So yeah, they've basically just been breathing down these kids' necks to say propaganda and stuff, saying, oh, $130 you can get an AR-15, and that scares the public shitless. So no, these kids are not handling themselves right. They've been brainwashed by the left, and I do not like them being brainwashed by the left whatsoever. They are being brainwashed and being taken advantage of.
And usually I stay out of anything that has to do with politics or religion or anything of the above. But in this particular case, I felt I needed to say something because some of my fans have been affected by this. And some of my fans are out there demonstrating about this. And I wanted to say something because I don't feel it's right that kids have to be the ones on the front lines of this fight.
They're only the people on the front lines because the left does not want to be on the front lines. They want to have kids manipulate the public into giving away their rights to have firearms. That's what they're trying to do, brainwash the public into believing, oh, we should have only police have guns, when you do realize there were 4 fucking police officers right outside the freaking shooting who did nothing. They did nothing. They were pussies. They were cowards. Like, seriously, I wouldn't care if my fucking life was on the line. I would go in there and save those fucking kids if I was one of those police officers. You know? It's like, it's so fucked up that the left thinks, oh, nobody needs guns besides the police, when yesterday it was fuck the police, Black Lives Matter, etc., and we shouldn't trust cops with guns. Now we want to give guns to the cops? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, not Markiplier, but the left in general. Like, seriously, your fucking fans probably eat Tide Pods, for God's sake. They're in that demographic and region. Not 2 weeks ago, kids were eating fucking Tide Pods. Now they want to do gun control. Seriously, do we want a bunch of idiots deciding our gun legislation? You know, there's a majority of those kids are ignorant about firearms, and they spew out of the mouths about it. And that's why organizations like the NRA, which sometimes I don't approve of, and pro-gun organizations like Jews for the Preservation of Firearm Rights have to go out there and dispel these rumors and stereotypes and myths. Because if we let kids decide gun legislation, then you know who's only gonna have guns? The police. And it doesn't work out great when a tyrannical government gets in power. Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin, I can name a whole bunch of other stuff. Millions of people have died because of gun control, because tyrannical governments get in power and use those current existing laws to screw over everybody. So, no, you should be against gun control, in my opinion, Markiplier. You should. But, who knows? You could honestly believe this. But still, I hope my video convinces you otherwise.
And I wanted to throw in my support and give my thoughts on the matter for whatever that may be worth. But to give you a background, I have an extensive background and experience with guns. My father was a 24-year Army man. He was a member of the NRA. He taught me about guns from a very early age, and he taught me to respect them and how to properly handle guns. I've gone to the shooting range many times. I've shot all kinds of guns. My dad even built muzzleloader rifles as a hobby. So when I say these things, just know that it's not coming from a place of ignorance.
As I said before, if your father was a 24-year member of the NRA, taught you to respect firearms, taught you about your Second Amendment rights, why are you out there against the Second Amendment in general? Why? Just because you want to ban an assault rifle, which is really just a semi-automatic rifle with a pistol grip and a little bit of a bigger magazine? I'll throw an image on screen about a hunting rifle or a Ruger compared to an AR. Otherwise, they're very similar, the caliber, etc. But the AR, it looks scary, and we should ban it pretty much. You know, like that. But why are you against the Second Amendment like that, Markiplier? Why? Why are you against people being able to own firearms if they totally treat them respectfully and do not go out and kill people? Why do you want to be on this gun control bandwagon then? A minority of mass shooters out there either have a mental illness, which a majority don't have a mental illness, or it's usually mass shooters get these things legally. So why are these strict gun control laws that are in place right now, why do we have them? Why not get rid of them and allow citizens to have firearms? And if a guy walks into a fucking movie theater, a school or a college, and he goes, hey, I'm gonna kill everybody, some guy can be like, hey, you're not, pull out his gun and fucking shoot the mass shooter. So why not do that? Why not arm teachers? Why not do private security? There are many solutions behind this than fucking banning guns or doing the gun control approach.
And first and foremost, I want to say that I don't think people should be able to access assault rifles. There's no beating around the bush. There's no kidding about it. There's no exaggerations. Assault rifles exist solely to kill people.
What type of an assault rifle are you talking about? M16s? AK-47s? Fully automatic? No, you're talking about semi-automatic guns, but you don't realize you're thinking about, oh, assault rifles, it must be automatic, right? Or, I don't know, maybe you've handled AR-15s and stuff like that. But the public, when they see the mind of an AR or a assault rifle, people think automatic. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, I know tons of people with AR-15s. I'm I know tons of gun people out there. And I can tell you they do not own automatic guns, because automatic guns have been illegal since 1934, and they've been illegal since 1968 with the Gun Control Act. So, no, assault rifles are not readily available to the public. You're talking about an AR-15, a semi-automatic gun that each time you pull the trigger, one round goes off. Depends how fast you pull the trigger, and it can cycle. But guess what? It's only one round can come out at a given time when you press the trigger. That's an AR-15 for you. So the AR-15 is not an assault rifle. It's a self-defense rifle, or it's a hunting rifle. It can be fitted to .308, which is a bigger round and can kill deer. Depends on the mag size you put on it. But yeah, the AR-15 can be used for hunting, many other things, self-defense, and yes, guns do kill, but they are a tool. You can choose whether to kill humans, or you can choose whether to kill deer. Though the only justified case where you could kill a human is in self-defense. Deer, stuff like that, hunting, then that's a little bit broader. But the thing is, you're arguing that, oh, assault rifles should be banned. What are you talking about? The semi-automatic AR-15s? Like, seriously, why should those be banned? I know mini Ruger 14s that are semi-automatic, they look like hunting rifles, and they are the same caliber and the same specs. So, do you want to ban something just because it's scary? Oh, do you want to ban it just because it's black, don't you? I saw that meme on the internet. But, yeah, so people think these guns look scary, therefore we should ban them. No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't ban guns because they look scary. We should not do that whatsoever, you know? It's bullshit that he wants to restrict people's access to firearms just because he finds a particular gun scary.
And you could say the same thing about all guns, but assault rifles especially, they don't have any purpose in hunting.
Markiplier, I'm sorry I had to interrupt you after 6 seconds, but that is bullshit. Did you know that they can be used in hunting? You do know that, right? They can be converted over to .308, which is a hunting round. It doesn't matter what the gun looks like, as long as it has a certain caliber and muzzle velocity, you can kill a deer with it just fine. Or you could lower the caliber to .556, which is a lower caliber, which has a lower capacity to harm people. So yeah, the guy who shot up that Parkland school, he wasn't using a high caliber round like a .308 or a hunting rifle round. He was using a round that is easily survivable if you have the proper medical attention and the proper response time. But that wasn't given at the Parkland shooting because 4 cops were decided to stand outside and do nothing, and ambulances really didn't show up. So yeah, plus it depends where you hit the guy. If you hit a guy in the chest with a .308, depending on where it lands, it will kill the guy almost 99% of the time. But if it's a .556, then there's a chance of survivability. So I don't think you're being genuine here. So no, I think that you really don't know about guns in general. The AR-15 can be used in hunting, it can be used for self-defense, and if you're gonna argue that assault rifles are meant to kill people, you have to argue that all guns are meant to kill people. But like guns, they are a tool that can be used in almost every application. Self-defense, hunting, whatever. So please stop speaking from a place of ignorance. Do your damn research.
They have a purpose in self-defense only to the point where they can kill multiple people with a lot of bullets in a very large magazine. And I know I'm going out on a limb and just saying this outright, but I'm 100% in the field that we need to ban assault rifles.
Okay, we did that in 1994. That was the assault weapons ban. I think it was signed under Bill Clinton. We did that, and guess what? A bunch of mass shootings happened afterwards. Columbine, you know what that was done with? A couple of, I think it was Tech 9, which is a pistol, and a shotgun, which killed about 13 people. What about that guy at Virginia Tech who killed, I think it was over 10 people, I think in the 20 people-ish range, with just 2 pistols. So no, banning assault rifles in those in those years did not prevent mass shootings. Most mass shootings happen with pistols and shotguns because they are more readily available than an AR-15 in a lot of states. So no, we should not ban assault weapons or assault rifles, or just in general we shouldn't ban a type of rifle because, oh, look at the past, look at these shootings. Well, these shootings were done with pistols and shotguns, not AR-15s. That's a recent phenomenon, not a real phenomenon back then. So, no, AR-15s have nothing to do with the mass shootings. They are just rifles that were used in those cases. Those people had an access to that particular gun and they used it. Just because you use a certain gun in a shooting doesn't mean we should ban it for everybody else. That would be ridiculous. If that was the case, freaking the handguns used in the Virginia Tech massacre and Columbine would have been banned. So no, we should not ban AR-15s or any type of gun for that matter. We should arm teachers. We should teach people how to be in self-defense, and we should hire more security guards who aren't pussies like the freaking 4 cops in Florida and actually defend our fucking children. That's one thing I don't get. The left thinks, oh, we should protect the banks, we should protect all the public places with security guards, but schools, maybe we should keep them unprotected so if tragedies like this happen, we can push our agenda even more. So, no, assault weapons or assault rifles or whatever, or just rifles, should not be banned just because they're a particular make and model. So, no, you're wrong.
And I know that people will say that gun control laws are not the thing that can change this, or at least they'll say that it's not the only thing that can change this. But in my mind, why not do everything in our power to try to protect our kids?
Okay, I'm just going to give an example. During the assault weapons ban that lasted from 1994 to 2004, Columbine mass shooting. That was a shooting done with a pistol, and a pistol carbine, and a shotgun. They killed about 13 people. You know where they got the guns? Not legally. They got it outside of a van, I believe, from my research. And they got it outside of a van from a guy who sold it to them outside of a pizza parlor, I believe. So, no, it's not. It's gun control. It's not going to change that. That shooting was done with illegal, unregistered firearms that were stolen. They may have been registered, but they were stolen and sold off to somebody else. And they use bombs also as well. Most shootings are done with legally acquired firearms. But since there's a strict gun control program in place, it doesn't really deter shooters whatsoever. They'll lie through a background check. They'll lie through everything just to get their firearms to go out and shoot people. So, no, gun control isn't going to solve this. You can't restrict it, then people who are the law-abiding citizens can't get guns, and the mass shooters go, hey, I'm going to go get my guns illegally, then we'll have a monopoly on this whole thing. We'll have a monopoly, and we're able to kill anybody we want. And what about those gun-free zones, which that school was a gun-free zone? So, yeah, gun-free zones do kill people. Fun fact, James Holmes, I believe, he walked past several movie theaters, found a theater that was a gun-free zone, and opened fire because he knew that, hell, people aren't gonna give fire back at me. So, you know what I think we should do? Repeal the gun-free zone. I think it was an act passed by Joe Biden during the 90s, and equip teachers with firearms and concealed carry, test them rigorously, and they should be able to protect their kids with all their might. So, yeah, I think we should be able to get more security guards that are not pussies, and be able to get teachers armed who are willing to be armed. Because you know something, you're better off if the guy has a gun, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. So, in general, we should arm teachers, not take away everybody's rights to have firearms, like the AR-15, that are actually used in only less than 3% of the mass shootings out there. Yes, only 3% of the mass shootings in AR-15 was used. So, yeah, mostly pistols are used in shit like that. So, you know what we should do? arm the damn teachers, put more security guards, and you know something? I think we're going to be able to deter people with pistols and shotguns if we have armed teachers. Yeah, that's what I believe. So, what's your point, Markiplier?
Or our people, or our fellow countrymen, or our neighbors. And in the avenue of trying to attack this from both sides, why don't we stop stigmatizing mental health? Why don't we stop treating it like some sort of problem that people just need to bear alone?
Okay, this pisses me off. As the audience knows, I am high-functioning autistic, meaning that I'm actually well off than most people with autism. Not most people, the minority are the low-functioning ones. But I'm a pretty sane person. I feel emotion. I can feel empathy like everybody else. Now, if you were to do the gun control laws, which would say, hey, let's ban somebody from a mental health issue from owning a gun, that would mean most people with autism, depression, and minor things would be barred from having a firearm, which I can actually say that you do know something. The American Psychological Association, I believe, actually disproved the mental health issue by saying that most people with a mental illness do not commit mass shootings or crimes or violent behaviors. It's actually people without the mental illness that go out and do that. And mentally ill people, or mentally health issues in general, are people with a mental illness are more likely to be the victims of violent crimes. Now, I wouldn't classify autism or depression as a mental illness, in my opinion. Depends how far it's gone. Personally, I'm autistic, but I wouldn't classify that as a mental illness because guess what? I'm high functioning. And that means that I'm like everybody else. It's just I learn differently. Should we ban people who learn differently from having firearms? No, we shouldn't. You know, it's especially if people who are in the mentally ill category, I'm going to quote that because most people have a minor mental illness, be it autism, Asperger's, or ADHD. If people with mental health issues are the ones being attacked with all this violence and stuff, if they are of sound mind, be it a highly functioning autistic person or a person with mild depression not going to kill themselves, they should be able to own a firearm to protect themselves. We should not take away rights from people who have minor issues. So, Markiplier, no. Mentally ill people are not more likely to commit violence against other people. It's actually the opposite, which is true. And I will link that study down below. Thank you, Mr. Dapperton, for referring me to that study as well. I love working for the Liberty Network.
That should be the first and foremost of everything, not just in these, but in general, because there's so many people out there suffering silently with mental illnesses that need help and are so afraid to go out and get it because of the way we treat it in this country. And also, why do we require more licensing and registration for cars than we do for guns?
Actually, as an anarcho-capitalist, I believe the concept of licensing and etc. is just a concept to restrict you of your rights. Now, most people who do drive cars usually don't kill people. But, what about that car accident rate where over 40,000 people die each year? When will we do car control? When will we make it more harder and harder to get a car of all things? And guess what? Unlike owning a car, in the Second Amendment, it's actually a right you can own a firearm, no matter who you are, as long as you do not harm anybody with said firearm unless in self-defense. The Second Amendment was written to actually prevent against tyrannical dictatorships, foreign invasions, etc. It was made as a right. It was made as a right for the people to have firearms to be able to resist foreign attack or let's say a tyrannical government, you know? So, no, I don't believe that we should make it harder to get firearms than whatever, you know? Cars, one thing, I believe that I don't really believe in licensing in general. I think that's just a way to restrict you of said right. I believe that in general, if people will find ways to become licensed, etc. How about privatized licensing of cars, etc. And you'll get safer drivers because the private sector actually has an incentive to have safer drivers, because if you got licensed by them and you get in a car wreck because of your shitty driving, the guy who got hit can sue said company and say, hey, you licensed a shitty person. You can't really do that with the DMV. You know that? The DMV is more of a monopoly of sorts.
I know that people abide very closely by the Second Amendment, and me as a proud American, I'm very proud of our Constitution, but at the same time, there has to be some measure of control. I know that people want to be able to bear arms, and I respect that. I come from a family that was all about that, but that doesn't mean that we can't have some measure of control over these extremely dangerous tools.
Hey, dumbass, rights exist in a negative context. You cannot demand people of things. It prevents things from happening from other people. So, guess what? You have a right not to get murdered. You have a right to your property. You have a right to own a gun, because that is a choice you and you alone can make. I'm paraphrasing Hoodie Demon here. But, yeah, owning a gun hurts nobody besides yourself if you use said gun against yourself, which logically you're probably not going to do. But, yeah, owning a gun is a right. The government cannot restrict said right because it is in the Constitution. If it was in the Constitution under things they could control, they could easily go to Section 8, I think the Powers Act, where the government could say, hey, we can, restrict certain things. If it's in the amendments, which is the first part, that prevents the government from changing said things against the people. Section 8 is different. If the Constitution said they could regulate the rights to have firearms, it would be either in Section 8 or it would be explicitly said in the Constitution or the Second Amendment. It would be clearly said, but it isn't. Therefore, you cannot change said rights. The Founding Fathers were quite clear about not changing the Second Amendment on that thing. And to the people who say, well, the Founding Fathers never intended for ARs, well, they never intended for the internet, cars, mostly all technological advancements that furthered the field of the First Amendment. So should we restrict the First Amendment just because that the Founding Fathers didn't intend those things? Probably not, because, times fucking change. But in rights, there is a negative context. There is no such thing as positive rights. You cannot demand somebody to give up their guns. You can't, Markiplier. That does not exist.
In the end, people will say that I'm spouting ignorance, or that I don't know what I'm talking about, or that I'm saying things that are wrong, and that is fine. But right now, the only thing that I can think of is, why shouldn't we be doing absolutely everything in our power to help?
Benjamin Franklin once said this: when you sacrifice liberty for security, you get neither. You don't whatsoever. Because when you sacrifice your liberty to own firearms, the government can easily become tyrannical and do horrible atrocities. Look at Germany, for example. 1933, when the Nazis assumed power, they used Weimar Germany's, which was the previous government's, gun control laws to restrict Jews from having firearms. And Jews were restricted from having them. They banned all firearm clubs that Jews could go to. They banned everything. They banned Jews from owning firearm stores. And you know what happened to Jews? The Holocaust. And we couldn't defend ourselves. We couldn't defend ourselves whatsoever. They took the firearms away through gun confiscations, via threats of, I think it was, starvation, and the firearms were handed over. Years later, we weren't able to defend ourselves against Nazi aggression, and they rounded up a lot of Jews and exterminated them. So, no, I am never going to give my ability to own a firearm away to anybody, because I know, through studying history, that if you give up your firearms rights, horrible atrocities will happen if the government becomes tyrannical, and the Second Amendment is a safeguard against that. If you get rid of that, that's like disabling your firewall on your computer. You're inviting viruses to come in and ruin everything.
Now is not the time for talk. Now is not the time for empty promises. Now is the time to do something for the people that are suffering most from this. And I want to end this by saying that these kids that are out demonstrating, they are an inspiration.
No, they are not an inspiration. They're actually a sad case when liberals take traumatized kids and use them to forward a political agenda, which is a very sad thing, and these kids who have been affected by the shooting should not be out there protesting. They should be getting psychological help and counseling so they're better to understand what happened and what the events went on there. They should be able to have their peace, and they should be able to mourn for their friends. Families, friends, anybody in that community should be able to mourn first, act second. Because when you act out of emotion, you cannot see the clear picture of things, Markiplier. You can't. You only see that one emotional thing. So, no, we should not be treating them as inspirations. We should be treating them as a sad case of the liberal media using them as propaganda. And the kids who are defending the Second Amendment rights are inspirations because they are not letting a tragedy get in the way of our natural rights, the ability to own firearms and deter tyrannical governments.
An absolute inspiration, not just to me, but to everybody watching across the country. And if you're watching this and you are out there demonstrating, or you're organizing marches, or you're talking to the people who are supposedly in power of these decisions, keep it up.
Here's my advice to the people who have been affected by the Parkland shooting. Get psychological help, counseling, etc. Be able to mourn with your family and friends, and be able to healthfully express those mourning and those concerns in a healthy way. Do not let the liberal media get control of you and make you go on this crusade that will take away your rights in general. If you're able to comprehend the Second Amendment and you're able to even read, you should be able to read up some history and be able to understand, hey, these guys are just manipulating us and we shouldn't listen to them. We should be advocating for our rights first, and we should be advocating for arming teachers and protecting our kids in an effective way, not just an emotional way. There is a meme I'm going to put up on the screen that says, hey, I want to ban guns. The guy goes, well, I have a solution. Arm the teachers. The guy goes, I don't want solutions. I want to ban guns. And he burns the solution idea. So, yeah, that's what the liberals want to do. They don't want a solution. They want to feel good. They want something that makes them feel good while not protecting them. That way, they can always push their narrative and agenda each time this happens. So, no, I think that the kids should get some real counseling, and the kids that are protecting our Second Amendment rights out there marching and organizing, the kids at Parkland that defend our Second Amendment rights, not the other half which have been brainwashed, keep that up and support organizations that protect our firearm rights. Do not waver to the left-wing media on this. I personally think that owning a firearm is a natural right and it should not be infringed.
Because the world is listening. The country is listening. People will try to ignore you and people will try to dismiss your opinion, but you are the future of this country. And you are the future of the world, and your actions dictate what our future will be. So don't give up the fight. Stay strong. And thanks for watching. Bye.
Well, guys, that was very fun to debunk this Markiplier guy. Hope you guys loved the video. Please subscribe, and if you're a fan, please consider donating to my Patreon or donating to my Bitcoin wallet. All amounts help, and it allows me to keep up the channel faster and come up with more videos. So, you know something, guys? Have a fun week, and keep safe, and keep strong. That's what I believe in. Keep free, and know your rights. This has been the Executioner, and wishing all you guys a good week. Goodbye.